This is the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to us. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started, as always, questions, opinions, Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the NVP Show, and on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX, hashtag BottomLine. Voice message on the Anchor app or Anchor.fm. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like and a comment down below. Helps out tremendously. And please make sure you subscribe, as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. So a couple of things here before we get started here. Neil, I think this is the first episode, and by the way, officially 8 episodes away from 200.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the first episode where I'm actually wearing glasses for a change. I was too lazy. I was too lazy to put my contacts in. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I was too lazy to put my contacts in this one. So I'm like, who cares? So if you're watching on YouTube and you notice a little glare in one of my lenses, I do apologize about that, but there's nothing I can do about that. But we're going to roll with it because, hey, you know what? That's life. But anyway, so yeah, that, and like I said, 8 episodes away officially from 200 episodes. Probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely get there. And I still really cannot believe it. But I've already given my spiel about that in the last episode. If you want to hear it, go check it out for yourself. But anyway, so today, I mentioned before. Oh, and actually, by the way, before I forget, Neil, I think you have some trivia. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, it's my turn this week. So, my turn this episode.
Go for it.
I feel like it's been a while.
Yeah, right.
A trivia question. So obviously the first thing we're talking about is what happened in the result of the Champions League final, which happened on Sunday. And so my question to you, Jimmy, is this: when was the last time that Bayern Munich won the Champions League? Who did they play, and what was the final score?
You suck. You actually
suck. You gotta keep the questions relevant to what we're talking about.
Well, that better not be somebody calling me with the answer, because I'm gonna be pissed.
Well, I don't think Steve or Garrett are on today. So.
I'm only kidding. Oh my gosh. So the last time Bayern Munich won, who did they play and what was the score?
You better not be looking it up.
No, I'm not. I promise. So if I remember, if I'm digging correctly into my memory banks, the last time Bayern Munich won was 2000 and I believe it was 2011 or 2012. It's not official, guess. It's not official. Not official. Not official.
Okay.
So, are we going back like this past decade or later than that?
Yeah, this past decade.
This past decade.
It's not that long ago.
Was I around the right area?
No comment.
Okay. Oh boy.
You have to answer 3 questions within this.
So I want to say that the score.
Well, give me the year. Hold on. Give me the year first. Give me the year
was
first.
It 2000? Was it 2013?
Okay. What was the score? I'm not telling you if you're right.
I'm going to say 2013. I'm going to say the score. Score was. I know we talked about how Bayern Munich likes to score a lot, considering the fact that they're a scoring powerhouse.
Well, this year.
Given the fact that the final was 1-0 for this game, I'm going to say the final for their last championship was also 1-0. And I'm going to say that they played. Oh, my God. Was it. Oh, my God. It couldn't have been PSG again.
No, because we talked about it. PSG.
Okay, so it wasn't them. Who was this in the Champions League? Barcelona?
So you got one out of the three questions correct. It was 2013.
So the year was right. Okay. All right.
The year was right. The score
I'll gladly take that.
Right. The score was wrong. It was actually 2-1.
2-1. Okay.
Bayern Munich defeated their German rival Borussia Dortmund in that Champions League final, which was held at Wembley Stadium in London. So that was it. Arjen Robben was the man of the match for that one, with a capacity crowd of just over 86,000 people. And that Champions League match was on May 25th, 2013. So that was the last time, and obviously I'm kind of ruining it, but last time since, Sunday,
right,
Bayern Munich had become champions of Europe.
Hey, considering the fact that I know little about soccer, I will gladly take one out of three.
You will gladly
I'll take it. I don't care. As long as I got one right, that's all that matters to me.
You will take a small victory. You will take a small victory in a battle.
Hey,
you'll probably
small victory is better than no victory. Am I right?
That's true.
Exactly. But anyway, so since we're on this subject, let's get right into it. So I actually did manage to watch a little bit of this championship game. The final score was 1-0 or 1-0, as most football fans like to put it. Bayern Munich won. I believe this is their sixth championship.
Mm-hmm.
It is their sixth. It's their sixth championship. Okay.
You are correct.
And I just gotta say it. The thing that really caught my eye the most was the goaltending. Because how many amazing saves did we see? I thought the goaltending was absolutely spectacular the entire match. And Coman scored the only goal in the 59th minute, which turned out to be the
beautiful header,
the game-winning goal, obviously. And Bayern Munich wins their first title since 2013. So, and the thing is, I know we talked about it with Steven Gerrard. We were expecting like a 3-2 final score, 3-1 as you had it, Neil. We were expecting high scoring because both of these teams love to score goals. They absolutely love to score. So we were expecting like an offensive powerhouse, but turns out that wasn't the case. Instead, we saw a great goaltending matchup, great defense, so many close chances to maybe score another goal for Bayern Munich. And for PSG, where was Neymar? Neymar was absolutely nowhere to be seen. I'm sorry. I respect the hell out of him as a player, but where was he? Where was he? He was absolutely nowhere to be seen. So does this mean he will never get the monkey off his back and actually win a championship without the likes of Messi, Ronaldo, and all those other guys? Hey, I still think he will, but hey, it seems to be a little bit of a harder path now for Neymar now that he lost, unfortunately, this championship. And I really hope he does win a championship on his own with PSG if he decides to stay there, that is. But, I really don't have too much to say about this. Neil, I know obviously you do because you know way more about this than me. So bottom line for me is I actually really liked what I saw. I'm not saying this is going to turn me into a full-time fan, but you know what? Games like this and games like this are examples of why I watch the World Cup. Because in the FIFA World Cup, you see games like this. You see teams that are competitive. You see great goaltending. You see great defense. You see unbelievable goals. Games like that and games like I see in the World Cup are reasons why sometimes I will actually sit down and watch. And from what I saw this past Sunday, the 23rd, from Bayern Munich and PSG, I really loved what I saw. I loved the goaltending. I loved that it was only a 1-0 final. And I really loved the game in general.
Well, I think it's safe to say that what we saw on Sunday was a typical soccer game that most American fans would expect to see. I'm sure, we did all four of us, you, myself, Steve and Garrett, all expected it to be a little bit more high scoring than it actually ended up becoming. And I think we all kind of joked that, it's just going to end up being low scoring. And that's what we got. And I think what you saw, if you guys watched the game, and if you haven't, you can obviously go see the highlights because it'll tell a lot of the story anyway, is that I think both teams respected each other with regards to how well they could attack and how well they could take advantage of mistakes. So I think both managers, both Tuchel and Hansi Flick, decided to create a little bit more of a defensive system for this Champions League match, that they weren't going to take too many chances, that both teams were just going to kind of, it was like a chess match almost, like they were kind of waiting each other out to see who would make the first mistake. And I'm not saying that the goal that Bayern Munich scored, which proved to be the only goal in the game winner, was a mistake by PSG. It was a tremendous effort. I mean, you're talking about Joshua Kimmich with an absolutely tremendous lob over several defenders, and then Kingsley Coman with a beautiful, perfect header that got the goalie going one way, and he knocked the ball in the other on the far side. That wasn't necessarily a mistake. Those type of things are going to happen every now and then because these guys are some of the most talented soccer players in the world. So it wasn't a mistake that we have to sit there and say, PSG should have had that one back. Like, no, it was just a great goal. It was a great setup. And it was just a tremendous header. So it wasn't like that. I think what people expected out of PSG was expecting them to be much more aggressive up front. And I think, honestly, early on, the first 30 minutes, PSG clearly were the better team. They were a lot more aggressive. I think that Neymar was relevant in the first 45. He did have that one chance on a beautiful through pass where Manuel Neuer made just a great save, and then he made another save where Neymar was trying to hit it off, and try to hit it off Neuer and then redirect it into the net, and he made both saves. That was a really good opportunity. The guy that I was a little bit more critical of was Kylian Mbappe. I fully expected him at some point to be able to take over and have 3, 4, 5 legitimate shots. And he did have, 1 or 2 really good opportunities. But other than that, he also kind of disappeared. But I think because of the fact that we talked about, if this is Neymar's team, this is Neymar's Champions League, that he was going to get the brunt of the criticism from a lot of the, reporters of the world. And I could see the emotion on Neymar once, the final whistle blew and how much it really hurt him because finally he was healthy. He wasn't dealing with an injury. He wasn't out of the Champions League final. He was there fully healthy, fully ready to go, and they couldn't get through. Unfortunately, I think they just ran into a better team in Bayern Munich. I think Bayern Munich, what they were able to do was they were able to change their system from being this, high attacking, high press offense that they're normally capable of doing.
Right. I was just going to bring up, not only were they better, this Bayern Munich team might be the best one we've seen in a while.
Well, I did say that on our on our preview of this Champions League. Right. Bayern Munich was able to win this game and, complete the trouble that you could arguably say this is the greatest Bayern Munich team in the history of their club. Because you look at it also, they are the first team in Champions League history to not lose a single game on their way to winning it. So in their round robin, I guess you want to call it, or the group stage. The group stage, they didn't lose a game. Right. Every elimination game, they didn't lose a game. I mean, they were just better. They were just better than everybody that they faced, and they proved it. And what made it so impressive in this game was that Bayern Munich respected how good offensively PSG could be. So they knew that they had the defense capable of practically shutting down the top guys. Angel Di Maria, of the 3 main, offensive weapons, Angel Di Maria probably had the best game. He did have a numerous amount of chances, especially in that first half. But I think once you saw Bayern score in the 59th minute, you could see it took about 10 minutes for PSG to kind of be able to regroup and try to keep going. Because I think you kind of felt like PSG was getting close to getting that really good opportunity to strike. And then Bayern goes and scores like that. One thing I remember from that game was right towards the end of the first half, Kingsley Coman actually, in my opinion, looked like he got fouled in the box. And I thought they were going to call a penalty shot, but they didn't. And they let it play on, and it ended up, that ended up being a tie at the half. But luckily for Coman, he was able to redeem himself. And actually, interestingly enough, Kingsley Coman started his professional career at PSG, and
Right.
he did win a couple of French championships there. While he was with PSG, I think then he went to Juventus, and then about 2-3 years ago, he came to Bayern Munich. So for him to get a little bit of if you want to call it revenge against his former club, he was able to get that. And I don't think anybody would have projected Kingsley Coman to be the difference maker in that. But what was great about it is that someone like Robert Lewandowski, who has been asked his entire career to be the man that puts the ball in the back of the net and constantly has to carry teams, it was nice to see him not have to be the guy that won it for them. And you could see the emotion on him because he had never won a Champions League, and he had been there in 2013 when he was with Borussia Dortmund and lost to Bayern Munich. And he was obviously a lot younger back then, but still it hurts nonetheless because you never know when you're going to get another opportunity to get back.
Right.
And it took him 7 more years to get back, and he had to join Bayern Munich to get it done. And you just have to say that he definitely deserved it. It was great. Thomas Mueller, again, another Champions League for him. He's basically had his whole career at Bayern Munich. And what was so phenomenal about this team is that there were so many different guys that just understood their role on this club and did it so well. I think Alphonso Davies, he wasn't as big of a factor in Champions League, but that's okay. It didn't cost them in the end. He did get a yellow card in the first half, which was a cause for concern because they didn't want him to get a second yellow.
Yeah, I didn't understand that though.
That
didn't look like he deserved a yellow card to me.
Every refereeing crew makes calls differently. They're never the consistent. So it all depends on what the ref thinks that he saw. But nonetheless, Alphonso Davies I thought was solid. And you can't help but feel proud, especially if you are a fan of Major League Soccer, because this kid came from Major League Soccer, went over to Bayern Munich, is arguably one of the best left backs in the world, and just won a Champions League. And the man is not even 25 yet. I mean, this guy has won already 2 Bundesliga titles, 2 German Super Cups, and now is a Champions League champion. I mean, you talk about getting off to a great start in your career. That's exact. And this kid came from a refugee camp and wasn't sure if he was going to survive. And he not only survived, but he thrived. And he has become such an invaluable part to that Bayern Munich squad. And, people love him. And fun fact, actually, because of the fact, I guess there were some incentives in the move for Davies to go from the Vancouver Whitecaps to Bayern Munich, that because Alphonso Davies won the Champions League, that actually the Whitecaps get an extra $1 million from Bayern Munich. So obviously both teams benefited. Yeah, there are these certain clauses and certain incentives that sometimes these players have to give. So I use Tyler Adams from the New York Red Bulls as a good example that, if Tyler Adams does certain things with, while he's over in Europe, the Red Bulls get a certain percentage of the money that they make off of him. So that's how it works sometimes in order to get the finances correct so that you can legally and safely make a transfer of a player. That's
right.
In order to avoid, getting in trouble with UEFA. But, job well done by Bayern Munich. They locked it down defensively. They did have a couple good opportunities to score 2 or 3 more times, but PSG was also very solid defensively. It was a low-scoring, grind it out, who's going to make the first mistake type of game. And we got, I think, a very, very, in many ways, if you're a soccer purist, you got an entertaining game because it was 1-0. I think for maybe fans that aren't as big into soccer like yourself, Jimmy, and, I know your opinion's different than most, but I would say for a lot of the regular American sports fans who maybe just happen to watch the game, I'm sure they would have preferred to see a couple more goals, maybe a back and forth type of match. But it was good nonetheless. It obviously was weird with it being no fans. I mean, it's always been weird since we got back to watching live sports. Right. It's a little bit different in soccer, I would say, because it gets really loud with the supporters and everything, and it just, it wasn't there. And it was definitely, I don't think you saw Bayern Munich celebrate as much as maybe they would have if the fans were there, but it was still a great achievement nonetheless. And for PSG, it's very unfortunate because you finally got to getting to the Champions League final. We all thought that maybe this was finally that moment that they could complete the process of where Qatar Airways bought PSG, and then, getting to this point, you were hoping that maybe this would be it. Now,
Right.
there's a lot of questions to be answered. It's about, okay, well, what can PSG do now to get over the hump? I honestly don't know what they need to do. Do they need to bring in a new manager? I don't think so. I think that this wasn't a case of, could PSG have done anything differently? I think they just ran into a much better Bayern Munich team.
Right.
I just think from a team-to-team perspective, Bayern Munich was much more defensively prepared. But PSG had chances. It wasn't like they were just completely dominated and they didn't have much of a chance from the get-go. They had chances and they couldn't bury them, and that's just how it goes sometimes in this sport. And it's unfortunate because, Kylian Mbappe and Neymar and all those guys, obviously for a lot of people it would have been nice to see them, win a Champions League, particularly Neymar because of all the backlash that he gets. I don't know how much backlash he's really going to get over the next several months because he didn't get it done. But I think it'll be interesting to see how PSG responds. Knowing PSG, they will probably try to spend more money on probably another player or two, or maybe a new manager. I don't know. We had heard rumors and rumblings over the last couple of weeks that Cristiano Ronaldo was getting angry with how things were going at Juventus, and that his agent was in Paris trying to orchestrate a transfer for him to go to PSG to team up with Kylian Mbappe and Neymar. But I think at this point, what we all forget about this sport is that this sport, more than most, is a team sport. You have to win with 11 guys that understand their roles. And I think that at the end of the day, it wasn't about, was PSG not prepared to win this game? It's just that Bayern was better. Bayern was more ready to. Bayern was not going to allow PSG to break through their very structured system. And a lot of credit goes to Hansi Flick, who has done a phenomenal job of coming in after Kovac and really just, making Bayern the powerhouse that they are. And the scary part for a lot of teams in Europe is that Bayern Munich is only getting stronger going into next season. I mean, they have Leroy Sané coming in, and obviously they're losing the likes of someone like Philippe Coutinho, but, Coutinho came mostly off the bench throughout his time at Bayern Munich, but they still have the core pieces that are there, and there's nothing saying that they can't go and try to go win another one next year. So it was the culmination of a tremendous, crazy year for Bayern Munich, and pretty much for everybody because obviously of COVID-19. But, we're only a couple weeks away from the start of next year for most, for the Premier League, for Ligue 1, for, Bundesliga. We're not that far away. So a lot of what we saw, with everything, the COVID-19 precautions, we're going to see again. So nobody's going to be thrown off this time. I think the only question is that, will we ever get to a point this upcoming season where fans might be able to come? I think we will, but it won't be till later on in the campaign.
Right.
But at the end of the day, and the bottom line is that Bayern Munich proved that they were the best team in Europe from start to finish, and they deserve this Champions League title. And for them to complete the treble, winning Bundesliga, the German Super Cup, and then winning, Champions League, that is a job well done by Hansi Flick, Robert Lewandowski, Mueller, Alphonso Davies, Joshua Kimmich, Manuel Neuer, all those guys, a job well done. And Bayern is back on the map as being a dominant power in Europe.
Yep, absolutely. Congratulations to Bayern Munich for winning it all. And to do it the way they did, like you said, Neil, is absolutely incredible. So with that being said, let's go into something I actually do know a little bit about. I'm just kidding. But it's the NBA again, because I sort of teased this question in the last episode. Well, not sort of. I actually did. So I teased this question. How should New York Knicks fans really feel about them picking 8th overall in the draft this year? Now, we all know that they're obviously picking 8th, and I think most Knicks fans, especially our friend Steve Durso, we're expecting them to pick, I believe he said 10th or worse than 10th. I think they were expecting to be at least 10th, and they moved up to 8. I'm like, okay, well, it's not the worst position to be in. And excuse me, here's what I have to say to Knick fans. If I'm you, I would actually be okay with this, and here's why. Because if you look at the draft class this year, obviously outside of LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman, who really is jumping out at you? They're really, this draft class to me, I mean, it's good, but is it that impressive? I've definitely seen better draft classes. So if I'm a Knicks fan, come off the ledge. Just come away, calm down, relax, and just see what happens. Neil, I talked about it in actually the first episode I did on Anchor.fm for this podcast. It was just myself at the time. It was in March of 2019. I argued tanking, and I mentioned the Knicks because I still think tanking is absolute nonsense. I still don't think it should be a definition when it comes to sports. It's the most annoying thing I've ever heard in my life. And when Knicks fans at the time were arguing that, oh, well, they should tank to get Zion, they should tank to get Ja Morant, I was like, have you lost your ever-loving minds? Like, seriously, you already have a bad enough record as it is. Why would you want to just keep losing out just to get possibly a superstar in the league in Zion Williamson? Like, I get it, he is a superstar, but the thing is, who played more that season? RJ Barrett did, because Zion was hurt at the beginning of his career. Now, granted, he came back and looks absolutely amazing, but hey, what do we always say? Sometimes your best ability is your availability. RJ Barrett was available most of the season. Zion wasn't. Now, again, I get it. Zion looks like a potential superstar. RJ Barrett looks like he's going to be a star. But my point is, Knicks fans need to stop with the high expectations for superstars. Because sometimes players on the college level, I will argue this again, sometimes players on the college level do not always transfer that well in the bigs. Hence, Greg Oden, Kwame Brown. Do I need to go any further? I didn't think so. But bottom line for me is, Knicks fans, please relax. You're picking 8th. Outside of LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, and others, there's nobody in this draft class that is really a big name. There's nobody that's really jumping out at you. Like, I get it. It's disappointing that you're probably not going to get LaMelo. I get it. But can we relax and see what happens? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a surprise that the Knicks fell from where they were projected to be, which I think was 5th or 6th. They dropped to 8. So, first of all, Knicks fans shouldn't even be surprised that they once again had high expectations and it didn't go well. This just proves the fact that when you have an owner like James Dolan, you're not going to just automatically get things to go your way just because you're the Knicks. Like, you actually have to show that you're really trying to get to become a good team again. The Knicks are starting another new era. It's like the 300th new era we've had in the last 20 years. And this
25 years, yep.
So it's now the Leon Rose, Worldwide West era of the New York Knicks. But,
and by the way, so I'm sorry to cut you off, Neil. I forgot to mention that they just hired Tom Thibodeau, who, by the way, you mentioned actually does a tremendous job in developing young players. So whoever the Knicks pick 8th overall, hey, maybe it could work out under Tom Thibodeau's system. Who the heck knows? Can we just calm down and get off the ledge? That's all I'm trying to say.
I think the reason that you can't, the first mistake you made, Jimmy, is trying to tell a Knicks fan to calm down, because that's not possible. Because the reality is, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, as long as James Dolan wants to be involved in basketball operations, the Knicks are not going anywhere. It doesn't matter who they bring in. They could bring in Jesus Christ himself and it wouldn't matter. James Dolan would have him fired within 2 or 3 years. Because I think James Dolan, as I mentioned before, is very big on gaining as much clout as possible. And he doesn't personally believe he could gain a lot of clout from being heavily involved with the Rangers operation, because we always use the Rangers as a comparison to the Knicks because James Dolan owns both franchises. Says, well, look,
but he actually lets people who work for the Rangers do their job. He always gets in the way of the Knicks.
Well, that was what I was going to bring up. The reality is that James Dolan knows that if he is heavily involved in the Knicks and they become very good and they win a championship, he will be, given so much clout, so much, admiration that he just wouldn't know what to do with himself. That's why he won't sell the team. Why would he? Why would he sell one of the biggest commodities that any owner could have, and that is owning one of the most historic franchises in sports, in a sport that is at least the second most popular among most Americans here in the United States. It's just something, he's not going to do that. It's just not that simple. But the NBA has made it clear that they're not just going to give the Knicks opportunity after opportunity to become good like that. And I remember Kevin Durant on a radio station in New York this past fall, the fall of 2019. The guy who was talking to him asked him about, why did he choose the Nets over the Knicks? And one of the things that
Charlemagne the God, right?
I believe it was Charlemagne the God. But anyway, he talked about Kevin Durant. He talked about the fact that, players nowadays who are in their 20s and, mid-20s and all that, they don't look at the Knicks as this historic, tremendously respectable franchise. All they've known from the time that they were young was that the Knicks were not good and that the Knicks have dealt with James Dolan. So it's not an attractive place. It's attractive to want to play a game or two in your life in the Garden because it's such a historic place. But you don't want to play for the team that plays there, that calls it home. And that's because of James Dolan and the way that he acts and the way that he tries to make it all about him. So, you could get excited about guys like Leon Rose, Worldwide West, Tom Thibodeau coming in and starting a new era. But you always have to keep in the back of your mind, whether you're a Knicks fan or you're just a basketball fan, is that at some point, unless James Dolan decides to change himself, at some point, James Dolan's going to do something that's going to interfere with the Knicks becoming a better team. Yeah. The Knicks have made the decision that they want to be a rebuilding team, which is fine. I'm sure a lot of Knicks fans are okay with it because they've tried every other method and it hasn't worked. But if James Dolan tries to expedite it unhealthily and tries to make it, happen sooner rather than later and is impatient, they're just going to fall flat on their face. Dolan's going to fire all these guys and they'll just be back to square one again. This is all it is. As far as
I still think they've been at square one since like 1999, but I digress.
It definitely does feel that way. Now, going back to the draft, I mean, you're absolutely right. Other than, Edwards, Wiseman, and Ball, there really isn't guys that stand out. So the Knicks would have benefited, obviously, from getting a top 3 pick, because then you would have said that they got a guy that they can really, really, use. I'm not saying that the Knicks can't draft somebody that's really good. The guy that I'm interested in the Knicks getting, and I think he actually will fall to 8, is probably Devin Vassell from Florida State. This guy is a two-way wing. He's 6'6". He really jumped the boards during his year with Florida State this past season. And I think he would have jumped even more had we had the NCAA tournament. I think he would have actually, had a couple really good games. And maybe Florida State would have gone relatively far. I don't know. Florida State basketball is, in my opinion, on the rise. They proved it last year in the ACC tournament and even playing in the national tournament. And I think that they're getting closer and closer. But Devin Vassell has really elevated himself from a guy that maybe was a mid to late round first-round pick to now I think he's a top 10 first-round pick. So I think the Knicks have a legitimate shot of having him fall to them. And getting a two-way guy is always important. You need to have one or two of those guys on your team anyway. So I think the Knicks will probably draft a decent player that, luckily for whoever they draft, won't have the world's greatest high expectations, which is fine. Because if you allow this guy to develop and develop properly, he could become a very good player that we could say, I'm really glad we drafted him because he's done very well. And here's the thing about RJ Barrett. Knicks fans are torn with RJ Barrett because the reality is that the Knicks were expected and prayed to God that they had got the number 1 overall pick last year, and they didn't. They ended up getting 3rd. And that was tough for them because we knew that the top 2 picks were going to be Zion Williamson and Ja Morant. And everybody was hoping that at least maybe the consolation prize would have been Ja Morant. Well, the Knicks didn't get either one of those. They fell to 3rd, and they lost out to Memphis and New Orleans. Unfortunately, that's one of the many times that the Knicks have not gotten screwed. It's just that they've got a quote-unquote punished for being the franchise that they've been over the last 20, 25 years.
Yep.
So RJ Barrett came in with a lot of high expectations, and I think people felt like he didn't live up to them primarily because he wasn't the same player that Ja Morant or Zion is. I think Ja Morant is a fine basketball player. I think you need to build your team around someone like him. I think, the guy's not even 21 yet. You need to give him a break. But Knicks fans don't give these guys a break. They thought that they were going to get Zion Williamson, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving this past offseason, and it didn't happen. And now they're left with, they're left with a lot of questions. But I think this year the Knicks should just focus on getting the best player on the board, whoever that is. I don't think trading the pick would do anything. I don't think trading the pick would get you a whole lot. If it was a top 5 pick, maybe be different. But again, because of the fact that there aren't bona fide superstar-like talent in this draft, it might not be, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot. So I think the Knicks should just take whoever's available there and just go from there. They have a couple contracts that are coming off the boards. The Knicks signed a bunch of guys to 1 or 2 year contracts. So they're going to have a lot of cap space within the next year and a half. Unless the Knicks can really show improvement and development, I don't expect the Knicks to really want to try to go after big name stars unless James Dolan forces the Knicks to do so. Because as long as James Dolan is in charge, he will do whatever he feels like he wants to do. So the Knicks fans shouldn't be surprised about falling. Disappointment is it is what it is. I don't think it's not as bad as it was last year.
I personally wouldn't use disappointment for this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just should be typical Knicks that they fell in the draft.
Yeah.
Regardless of who was there, they fell, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But I think the Knicks, you can't have any sort of really big optimism and hope because, again, you know who your owner is. You know what it's all about. All you can hope for is that maybe Leon Rose, Worldwide West, and Thibodeau and everybody there will really be given an opportunity to do what they were brought in to do. And we'll see how it goes. We'll really see how it goes. And we'll see who the Knicks draft in October.
Yeah. Yep. We'll definitely see. But bottom line is with the Knicks, maybe calm down was the wrong couple of words to say for me at least. But let's just see who they draft first before you guys jump off the ledge. Please just.
Well, I mean, I don't think it matters who they draft either, because again, by the time they get up to pick, already 7 players have gone, and there will be a lot of questions. There will be a lot of. Well, I don't know who we're going to draft. It's not like the Porzingis situation where they drafted just an unknown guy that Knicks fans booed. I don't think the Knicks are going to boo whoever they draft because they just don't know who's going to be there, and it's not a guarantee.
Well, here's the thing though. Knowing how the Knicks fan works, they might. They shouldn't. But they might.
Obviously going to be maybe a guy or two that you would expect to be taken at number 8. That could be there at number 8. And then the Knicks could pick someone completely different.
Right.
But I think most likely with the fact that their pick is just inside the top 10, they're going to pick somebody that's probably, the best player on the board. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of the first round, that's kind of what you end up doing. Especially if you don't have guys that you particularly really like. If the Knicks have a handful of guys that they like, right, but they're not crazy about any of them, they're just going to pick whoever they feel is the best player on the board. That's just
Right.
what we'll see. So if Devin Vassell from Florida State is there at number 8, I think the Knicks will just take him. I really do. Unless they want to go positional need. If they go positional need, then I don't really know who's available.
Well, we do know what they do need. A point guard, which is something they have not had in 25 years.
Well,
So
I mean, I think that Frank Ntilikina is a good backup. But yeah, I think
yes.
I think you're right. I think that, I mean, you could draft Vassell to make him a wing and maybe make RJ your point guard, because I think RJ
You could
can become a point guard if you give him the opportunity.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I think the story at the end of the day is that Knicks fans should not be surprised that they fell. This isn't a good draft anyway. So even if they stayed at 5, who the hell, again, who are they going to get?
Exactly.
If James Wiseman, for some unknown reason, drops all the way to 8, I still don't think the Knicks should take him because they already have a big man in Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
Who isn't fully developed. And I think you need to not, create that sort of, confrontation, in my opinion.
Right.
But that's me. If LaMelo Ball were to fall to 8 or something like that, yeah, obviously you probably take him. But again,
Yeah.
Edwards, Wiseman, and Ball are all going to be gone within the first 3, 4, maybe even 5 picks. And so, I think the Knicks will just take whoever's the best player on the board. Knicks fans won't have that much of an opinion on them. They won't get mad about it unless they draft someone completely out of the blue, which, you can't take it away from them because they have done that in the past.
Yep.
So I don't think this is, we're not sitting here laughing our asses off that the Knicks fell to 8. It was just like, ho-hum. It's not a surprise.
Typical Knicks.
It was just not a surprise. And nobody should feel that way. And talking with several Knicks fans, I mean, this isn't a draft that anybody's going nuts over anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been funny to see the Knicks get the number 1 overall pick and then have that unfortunate situation where they're not sure who to take with the number 1 overall pick because nobody stands out.
Then then they would have really rioted.
But again, because this draft class is not terribly deep, you definitely have to wait another year before we start talking about deep draft class again. The Knicks should just take whoever's the best player available, unless it's someone like James Wiseman, which you'd rather not. But if you get a really good deal, for pick 8, let's say you get a couple first round picks,
Right.
I wouldn't push it past them, because if they traded the 8th pick to get 2 or maybe even 3 first round picks, which, I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but again, if they were able to get multiple first round picks or maybe even a first, a second, to add to draft capital, that would also be fine, especially if the Knicks don't feel comfortable taking anybody at number 8. If they want to take down, fine too. So I think the Knicks are fine. I don't think they'll make any crazy decisions.
Right.
I don't expect it. I want to give Leon Rose and Worldwide West an opportunity. But, again, you have to keep in mind, James Dolan is always lurking behind them. So we'll see if he makes any rash decisions. I doubt that James Dolan will be involved in the NHL draft. I don't think he
No.
I thought this would kind of be like the perfect year for James Dolan, because obviously the Rangers won the number 1 overall pick. I was kind of convinced that the Knicks were somehow going to get the number 1 overall pick so that you can have those New York franchises be like the center of the draft, in the and really people would get excited about it. Oh my God.
That would have been nice.
That would have been interesting, but that just isn't what it is. But I mean, we'll see what the Knicks do. We'll see how it goes in October.
Yep, absolutely. We will indeed see. And on that note, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. If you have any thoughts on anything we discussed, let us know on Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the MVP Show, and on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX, hashtag Bottomline, voice message anchor.fm, or the app for your Apple or Android devices. And please make sure you leave a like and a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube with your thoughts down below. And please make sure you subscribe as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. Stay tuned for an update later on today or on the 26th of August for what the episode will be about on Thursday the 27th. But I do know this. I will actually have a trivia question on time. So bit of a shocking development. So we'll definitely get into that. But stay tuned for updates on Twitter within the next couple of days for the episode on the 27th of August. For Neil Villapiano, I'm Jimmy Fedizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast. See you in the next episode. Peace out.